Hey everybody, hope you're doing well today. This is Brad Cartwright, and today we're going to take a look at the next installment of the How to Draw series, a collaborative effort between me and you. Let's take a look at the negative externalities of production graph, part of your studies of market failure. Let's take a look. All right, well, let's take a look at how to build this negative externality production diagram. And again, I just take you back, and you've been watching this whole How to Draw series throughout your studies of economics. You know that I say the same thing at every video, which is, where does the story begin? Negative externalities of production, that story begins exactly where all of the other market failure diagrams begin, which is with this diagram right here. If you don't understand this diagram right here, check out that video right there, which is how to draw the base diagram for market failure. It'll tell you the logic behind this, right? I'll tell you how it's built based on the demand and supply diagram, but you can't continue in this video unless you know how to draw this diagram. But more than draw it, you understand where it comes from. Okay, so check out that video right now if you don't understand where this diagram comes from. Great. All right. Now, how do we make it look like a negative externality of production diagram? Okay, well, the first thing you got to think about, and I've been saying this throughout the entire series as well, is when we're talking about production, then we're going to move this line. How do we know that? Because production has to do with suppliers, and suppliers are represented by that line right there. Okay, so something's going to happen here. Something's going to happen. The marginal social cost and the marginal private cost are no longer going to be the same, right? No, they're not going to be the same. They're going to move. And what I've been saying throughout this whole series, which is really helpful for you to think about, is that the marginal private or marginal private is going to move out from underneath the marginal social, whether that be consumption or benefit. Cost or benefit. Okay, so let me get rid of that highlight. Okay, so now what does that mean? Okay, so negative of production. So that means actually that the social cost of producing something, and this is the socially optimal point, point B. That's a really important point that you're going to want to remember, because at the end of this, you're going to want to figure out how to solve it, and you need to know where to be. Okay, so what's actually going to happen is I have here the market for paint. And let's just imagine that Sherwin-Williams, I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, and Sherwin-Williams is made in Cleveland, Ohio. But there's some cost to society as a result of making paint. One of them is there's pollutants that go into the air. Right now in Cleveland, they've put in a lot of environmental standards, and so the pollution really isn't that bad. However, let's pretend like it's like 1952, and Sherwin-Williams is making paint in Cleveland, and out of their smokestack is coming a lot of pollutants, chemical pollutants that are hurting the respiratory systems of people around there. Okay, so what would that mean? What it would mean is that the private cost, what Sherwin-Williams actually has to pay in order to produce the paint, is less than the total damage that they're doing to society. You see, because the lung infections that are happening as a result of the paint business is not reflected in the price. So the marginal social costs are actually less than, I'm sorry, I said it backwards. The marginal private costs are actually less than what they should be. Okay, so what that diagram, what happens then on that diagram is we end up with a shift of the marginal private cost curve. It's not quite parallel, but it'll give me a little more room there, right? This marginal, and I'm not going to draw it, I'm just going to highlight it. This marginal private cost curve moves here, okay? Moves right there, okay? The marginal private cost curve. Wow. So what happened? Well, now as a result of that, there is a new market equilibrium, this existing right here, at P2, Q2. So actually, the economy, or what is being produced, right, is more, see the difference between Q1 to Q2, there's more paint being produced than what would be the socially optimal quantity of paint being produced. Another way of saying that is like, look at, when Sherwin-Williams makes the paint, this is how much it costs them, P2. But if they were to really take into consideration all of the cost to society as a result of those pollutants going out of their smokestack, then it would cost them this, and we would solve the externality, okay? So what we got to think about then is how then do we account for that, or where is it shown? It's shown right there, okay? So there's point B, that's where we want to operate. And let me just make this an A, and we'll make this point here a C, okay? So now we have a situation where we can show the welfare loss as a result of the production of paint, okay? And the positive externality of production is visible right here, okay? So this movement right here is where the externality is taking place, because this is where the market should function, but this is where it is functioning. So this is the welfare loss to society as a result of the fact that the cost of making paint does not take into consideration all of the costs and damages done to society. Okay, so the government, and now this video is not about how to solve this. If you're interested in seeing a video about how to solve it, check out that video right there, which are the solutions to negative externalities of production. But what we just want to do is be able to recognize what we have, okay? What the government wants to do is reduce the quantity of paint being used, and therefore reduce the negative externality of production and also the welfare loss. But in terms of just drawing it, that's the way that it looks. That is the negative externality production diagram. Pretty cool, pretty complex, pretty cool. Make sure that all of your labels are right. This should be MPC down here. That's why I drew it. Okay, but that's the, there you go. That's how to draw the negative externality of production diagram. Well, there it is, my friends, the negative externality of production graph, a very important graph in understanding what happens when we produce things and the external effects of those cause damage to our society around us. For that reason, I'm out here outside one of the largest malls in all of Santiago, and maybe you can see those mountains in the background. They used to be crystal clear. People who live here for generations have told me that the change in the air quality here in Santiago, especially near these mountains, has changed significantly, and most of it is because of the production and all of the industry that has popped up here in Santiago, which of course is good for the economy, but damaging to the environment. So, a great example of negative externalities of production. I hope you found this video to be helpful. Of course, this is the latest edition of the How to Draw series, a collaborative effort between me and you. So let's stay in touch. Turn on your subscriptions or subscribe and turn on that notification so that we can be in contact. Leave comments below for any suggestions you might have. I read every single comment that comes into my channel. All right, my friends, be good out there. Take care of yourselves, and we'll talk to you in a bit.